Next up on the program, there's a gentleman that I met 3 decades ago, and he is a force to be reckoned with. He comes into a room and he commands a presence just naturally, and um, he's been one of the pioneers of stuttering therapy over the last, many decades, and we're deeply honored to have him with us today. And I'd like to introduce my good friend, Gunars.
Hi. What I want to do today is to show how a stutter who has recovered sounds and acts. The actions we will not investigate as much, but I would want to show and tell how good an individual can sound and how calm he can be when he is totally recovered. Now, then there comes the idiotic question. What do you mean totally recovered? Because nobody, they say, is totally recovered. So what I do is I make it so that I call it uh, operational fluency. Operational fluency indicates that the whole thing, my experience in life, no longer has a hangover in it. By hangover, I mean I don't have cognitive disturbance about if I have a block in my speech. And I think that even the people who call themselves uh, fluent do have, on occasions, some little disfluences. For example, this one. Yeah, this one. If it comes up in my conversation, am I ashamed of it? No. That is, it bothers me. Then occasions I have that disfluency. No. But I'm jumping in the middle of things where I really should have started at the start. The first thing I remember about my life is I'm outside at the age of around 4.5. And there's a swing where all of the kids gather around and everybody's happy, sort of. And we're waiting for our turn to swing back and forth. And up comes my turn. But there is a bully ahead of the line who says, no, we don't let individuals who stutter to swing on swing. So what happened that evening was the weirdest thing I had ever seen. I kneeled down by my bed and I said, Dear Lord, I'm happy. If somebody has the study that you chose me, because not everybody would be able to tolerate the curse of stuttering or the discomfort of stuttering. I really think that it is important to to understand that there are many, many stutters, and all of us have been able to stutter and bend. So let me go on to the next step. I was, you know, ordinary individual, and I did not have any extraordinary things except World War II. That was not any easy instance because my parents didn't have enough time to go and tend to me as much as they should have, because we were every day in a situation where we could have died, just like the Ukrainians today. But I need a glass of water. My mouth has gotten sort of dry. And I don't know if that is a sign of stuttering also, because I don't often have a dry mouth. But what happened is that when Russians started to come in Latvia, oh, this is much better, uh, that I was able to escape with my parents to Germany. Germany was not at that time that nice of a country to be in, and we were uh, thrown into refugee camps. They were old army barracks sometimes, where one family this uh, was in a certain small area allocated to them, and it had in it a, a space set off by ropes and hanging sheets. And 2 or 3 times a day, we would get food from the community kitchen. And in the community kitchen, there was an old army uh, kitchen. That really the unfortunate thing was that the food was not that good, and you couldn't have as much as you wanted to. So there was this opportunity to escape by emigrating from the camps to America, for example. But in order to emigrate, we had to pass some physical exams, and then we had to pass some uh, mental exam in front of a nice individual consular employee. And everything was going all right. We had it all set. We were enthused to come to America, where the streets are lined with gold and knowledge. And so I was all set to talk to that consular employee. He was nothing scary, but when he said, "Gunars, what's your name?" He even gave me the name. I froze. I couldn't say one thing. Totally frozen. I'm sure that there have been a whole bunch of you who've been in that situation where you just can't say anything. Nothing comes. Nothing. And then they escorted us out the room. And on the way out, the counselor employee hands me the sheet of paper and he says, "Here, write down your." But by that time, I was so panicked, I could not have this sense of taking a pencil, writing it down. Gunars. Not possible. But in 2 days after being very uncertain whether we would get in the United States or not, they allowed to come in United States. Well, and the thing is as all of you know, is if you're in a new situation, you stutter. And you stuttered badly. And you thought this, oh my God, I'm no good. I stutter. I shouldn't stutter. I have to be perfectly fluent. If I have even the smallest stutter, that means I'm cursed. And everybody will laugh at me. Because there are so many of us stutterers who are what is called covert stutter. We hide our stuttering and we think we can hide it very well. But on the other hand, we often have a disfluency. And then you ask us, what? Why? Nobody will ever like, I will never be able to date them. And I turned back and I said, I want to find out what I can do with my stuttering and what I can help others to do with theirs. At the start, I had taken a job as an aerospace engineer. I had earned my doctorates in engineering, and I thought that everything is going to be so smooth. But then I still had this stutter. And I said it was not good. But by accident, I ran into a guy called Albert Ellis. Albert Ellis was the founder of rational emotive behavior therapy. In rational emotive behavior therapy, I went and saw him, of course, because I had the opportunity to do that. I said, my God, this would be the answer. Albert Ellis looked at me and said, you don't want to go after perfection. Why don't we find out what stuttering is? And we started to talk about it. Stuttering is not only in the mouth. Stuttering is what you think about your speech. Cognition, it's called. Stuttering is not only the sounds you make with your mouth, and that is why I think so many of the stuttering therapies fail, because they did not take into account develops. Because when you believe in something, it has an effect on you, an emotion. And I was very ashamed of my stuttering and anxious. I would have to, as an engineer, I would have to often go and give a speech in front of 7 people, and then as I got more advanced, that there were a bit more. But Albert Ellis taught me that you can do something about it. Now just go ahead and read all about stuttering, you know, and voila, and behold, in an old book out of the University of Iowa, I found Wendell Johnson. Wendell Johnson was involved in general semantics. And he said, you can do both the change of how you think about yourself and how you speak. So I took Wendell Johnson's Iowa bounces and made them my easy bounce. And I myself, I said, in every situation, I will use an easy bounce. And now I'll ask my assistant to give me a, a slide. And in the meanwhile, what I have told everybody and what I started to do myself is that I would tell myself in every conversation to use one easy bounce. Now, easy bounce is the repetition of the first syllable of the word in an easier way, like Baba bounces is a repetition of the first syllable, but it's an easy bounce. And yet, on the other side, my subconscious knows that it is a disfluency. And if in every situation, so I can admit that I stuttered in a way because easy bounce, stuttering, disfluency, they're all in the same bag. Then we can sell ourselves to talk in a manner like I will demonstrate now. For instance, I can do a couple of words like this. In the meantime, among everything else, I had finished off my engineering work and I went back to school in psychology. And in psychology, I was able to pass the exam. Yeah, I was motioning to my person to be my helper to switch over the thing, the computer. And what happened is that I thought that I was allocated 2 half hours, say, you know, all right. And so I started to teach other people what had helped me. And I call it the, I forgot the word because it's the uh, objective fluency. In the objective fluency, you don't you don't bother about the small things, and you have cast away all of your feelings of being feeling bad about yourself, because Albert Ellis told me, and he has told many people, that there isn't anything wrong with having one stutter. It's just imagine you have a car, nice Mercedes Benz, and all of a sudden you get a flat tire. Everything else is all right. You don't throw the car away. You don't throw away your esteem. It's, it's just, it is just a flat tire that can be fixed. And this is where I had a big argument with a stuttering community, both the people who stutter and the people who are the SLPs, people who teach others not to stutter. And so what happened is that I said, yes, I can become fluent. And they said, no, you can't, because on occasions you still have some stuttering. But I said, stuttering is not only the sound you put out. Stuttering is the way you think about yourself. And the way I think about myself is I'm a good dude. And think of yourself as a big eye, filled a glass big eye, filled with a lot of small eyes. These are my characteristics. One of them happens to be speaking. So it's not exactly always perfect. So what? I won't define myself by my study. I will define myself by everything else I do. And I'm a conglomerate of things. As Tom Sharstein will tell you, he is a person who may have stuttered because I don't remember, Tom. When have you stuttered? How long ago?
So we met 30 years ago, and I believe that was when I was coming to terms with my stuttering. So I still have stuttering episodes, but I think that my own self-diagnosis is that my plasticity changed because I had a significant stutter in my younger days. And I think through just the high volume of public speaking that I've done, and, um, and that, um, it gave me the courage to put myself in high risk speaking situations. Like now, I speak to strangers all day long on the phone. I do sales calls, business meetings all day long, and stuttering's really not an issue. I think that my plasticity changed. So I think
Yeah.
that's how I would answer your question. I mean, definitely, I align with what you were saying that um, my mental attitude towards stuttering has definitely changed.
And the issue is, I think in all of my books, and I write a lot, uh, spend a lot of time in writing. There's a book called From Stuttering to Fluency, Rational Recovery from Stuttering, Free Yourself from the Shackles of Stuttering. In all of those books, I talk about how you can change your attitude above all. And I was so happy that you were able to overcome your stuttering because that means is everybody can to an extent if they don't get hung up on individual blocks. And the thing is, uh, you sometimes say, well, I went to this SLP and he didn't help me that much. But then, the other hand, you take a book like an entrepreneur's book. It is called The Lean Startup. I don't know if, Tom, you have heard of it. The Lean Startup, the concept of it.
No, I have not heard of it, but I'm just putting it on my must-read list right now.
What it is it starts out with a concept of serenity prayer sort of turned upside down. It says, change the things you can change. Have the serenity to accept those you cannot, and the wisdom to tell the difference. But in a book like The Lean Startup, they have various ways how you pivot. You change what you're doing. If something is not helping you, you go back and attempt to do something else. But you have the understanding it is able to change. And I hope that some of you come in on the question and answer period. And in there, um, I could answer anything you ask is why do I think that I have conquered stuttering? Or I am an individual who has some stuttering on occasions, but it does not bother me. That is the big deal. And so, if I am encountering an individual who is teasing me, I have a good time at it. I honestly am able to stand up to him or her. Can't you, Tom?
Sure, sure. It becomes humorous
Yes.
after a while, and I think when you bring humor into it, it de-escalates everything. I used to get angry, and then I would let 'em have it, and that really didn't work. But
Have
but
you,
bringing humor into it, yes.
yeah, do you recall Walter Manning? He wrote a book on stuttering. Yeah. You're not as much of a reader as I am, I understand.
I am not.
Yeah, but
I should be.
Walter Manning, Walter Manning said, it is not hard to learn how to speak in a certain measured way. What is hard is if you attempt to do it in a bantering way, in a conversation. Did you ever have an instance where you lost all of your hope of getting better where you were when you got in a situation you started to say, oh, what if I fail? What if I stutter? Have you had those instances.
Oh, absolutely. The fear of stuttering was way worse than the actual stuttering itself. What I was afraid of, the consequences that I feared in my
But
mind.
what I'm very enthused about you is having not as many book learnings about studying, but that you were able to do it on your own. And I think that between us two, we should be able to take anybody, bring them out, not to become perfect speakers, but to minimize our unhealthy emotion. What is an unhealthy emotion? Anxiety, also that you don't accept yourself, you think I should be different. But the reason why I brought in Walter Manning is that Walter, in many of the studying SLP conferences, I was able to talk with him, often in a bar over a good whiskey. But he told me, if you think you can overcome stuttering, come back to me and talk to me just like an ordinary person. And so I got this idiotic idea that I would not have one PowerPoint after another one, that I would attempt to create a kind of a feeling where the individual who hears me and hears you understands that maybe we don't have perfect speech all of the time, but we really have minimized our anxiety about it. Isn't that so?
100%. I mean, I believe that the core purpose of the stuttering support community is to assist people to overcome the fear of stuttering. And I think and I've seen time and time again, once people overcome the fear of stuttering, the stuttering becomes unimportant. It often minimizes.
And I was so happy to hear that you have this stutter uh, fest. You only have had two, or is it one version versus another version? Why do you call it what StutterFest 1.0 or 2.0?
So we started this 5 years ago, and we call it StutterFest 2.0 because I think that when the team thought that we were at a good point where we have refined it to just through trial and error, we feel like we're on a new level, and that's why we call it StutterFest 2.0.
Yeah, because you are. You're amazing. And, there is, I hope, though, that some of the people also read my books because in some of them, I think I have spelled out how rational emotive behavior therapy handles stutter. And that is, first of all, accept yourself unconditionally. No matter what you do, how you fall down, you're still a very uh, valuable human being to yourself. And if somebody starts to step on me and tease me, I can tease back. You do that also, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, so tell me what is going to be StutterFest number 3.0.
When we reach that new level, then we will call it StutterFest 3.0. And so we have it through Zoom, and we do it 24 hours long. We've only got, uh, so we got about, 14 hours left to go. So we do it 24 hours so that we hit every time zone in the world, and we will always do this. We will always have a virtual StutterFest so that people that can't attend a conference have an in-person conference, have the opportunity to get the conference experience.
Yeah, I I often get some emails where one of my clients says, "Oh, you were right. To overcome stuttering, you got to work, 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 work. Did you have to work, or did the magic just appear?"
There is no secret sauce. I mean, the magic did not appear. I had to Once I started dealing with the fear of stuttering, I began to put myself in high risk speaking situations. And even though I would stutter in those situations, I found that the after effects of a block or a stutter, it was not as bad as I had imagined. And actually, because of the situation I put myself in, the outcome far outweighed any slight chuckle, any strange look that I got from the listener. So it became outcome based. I was
Now,
getting the results.
I want to ask if you have been asleep, but can you tell any difference between you and me in how we handle our stuttering?
I think I would have to see you on a day to day. I'd have to see your reactions on a daily basis. My guess is that um, that that you have the same approach as I do. I ask myself, would I do this if I didn't stutter? If the answer is yes, I I automatically do it because then I know. Because if the answer is no, I know the fear of stuttering is preventing me from taking this action. And so I push myself to take that action because the answer is yes.
And so, what I want to ask you is, what? No, I don't want to ask you. I want to tell you what I do with my clients, and I ask them in every situation, use an easy bow. Why do you think I do that? It is because if I am able to face and say, yes, maybe I can face any stutter. And so I do it halfway. It's not total stutter, but it's not exactly no stutter. It is a admitting to myself is that, yeah, yes, I can sometimes to talk like this, and that this isn't bad. And I have found out that of all of the things I've experimented with, that has has had the best results in getting to less and less severe blocks and less and less anxiety about. because that is, I have told myself, yes, it's all right for you to stutter. Now, there is one thing I want to ask you. Uh, uh, I am going to share my screen again. I was asked by you to tell what I have learned in 88 years of stuttering in half an hour. I think that was a bit challenging. What I found out is that I have 8 points that I have learned. First of all, is honest self disclosure. Each of us are different, but we have to understand that we are different. And so we want to be able to be honest with ourselves first. And stuttering is holistic. It is not only how we talk, but it's the emotions, beliefs, behaviors, and motivation. Somebody asks us, why motivation? Motivation is what made me go ahead and attempt to change my stutter. Not that in one step I would all of a sudden be fluent. I would be the kind of fluency that I have. And I call it, at times one kind of fluency, at times the other one, but it's no big deal. And the real improvement is the in reduction of negative, unhealthy emotions, anxiety, shame, guilt, self-doubt. The people who stutter can learn to define himself not by his stuttering and not allow anybody else to define them by stuttering. The second four are the the chart of things that I came up with. You can start to recover immediately, to understand that you can get better step by step by step. It doesn't have to be all of a sudden. The, the word which I had forgotten in speaking was operational fluency. Operational fluency is, so on occasions I fall down, but for all purposes, just like you said, uh, if you think that if you wouldn't have stuttering, you would not do this thing, meaning only stutters will do this kind of things. If you can say, hey, it is not important to be perfect, but if you find that something a fluent person wouldn't do, and you do because you think you are a stutterer, then you do that thing and you express the same thing. And the thing is, what I want to do is to help out people to understand that each of us are different and we can use different tools to recover. And recovering evolutionary. This one I like. It is a weird saying I heard somewhere. The measure of value of a technique is not on it in its truth, but how it impacts you. Sometimes you just have to do things not because you're convinced that this is the way to go, but huh, let's see if it is the way to go. And above all, studying has to be uh, enjoyable. Studying therapy has to be enjoyable. Now, we're coming to an end. Every good things. I think that using REBTS in the operational fluency, I no longer think about stuttering. You know, I can go days at a time and I'm all right. The anxiety, shame, and guilt are almost gone. But they may pop up in time. And I no longer rate people according to whether they stutter, whether they're inferior or this and that now. And I teach all of my clients to go in and on a job interview say, on occasions I have some disfluencies. And I have found out that the career and social opportunities pop up more and more. I have people in India who have advanced from a menial data input job to where they are in charge of the whole department. And I think the easy bounces help me, but that does not mean it will help everybody. Now, you have to ask me something. Because if you don't ask me, then there is no mystery about things.
So what draws you to dedicating so much of your life now to helping people who stutter instead of just leaving this whole stuttering community? Why are you still here and why have you made this a life mission?
Like you, I, I had to get in a joke somewhere, but as I started out, I got thinking of what is the first thing I remember about my life. And it is the instance where I was beside my bed, kneeling and saying, Lord, if somebody had to stutter, let it be me because I can tolerate it. But then there were other instances. I am an individual who wanted to be very uh, helpful to other people. Do you know what was the best compliment I had ever gotten in my life? It was that on my 88th birthday, somebody came up to me and said, Gunars, you're an individual who wakes up, I think, with the idea, how can you make somebody else happy? And so I think that if I can minimize other people's anxiety and sort of wipe out all of the shame and guilt and self-downing. And I have many of it too, but Those are those are the ones that I have talked about is that that I want to help people. Why do you do it, Tom? Isn't it about the same? You want to help people?
I want kids who stutter to have it easier
Hmm?
than I had it when I was growing up. I want the world to be a better place for them and with them to reach the level we are sooner, much sooner when they're very young. So they don't have to go through the difficult journey that you and I had to go through in order um, to find a way that works for them to manage their stuttering. I want them to get here sooner, and listening to people here at StutterFest and especially the young man that spoke earlier this morning, Trace is 10 years old and just hearing his courage and hearing how brave he is. Um, that's what keeps me going, because we see the results of our work. We see smiles, we see happiness, we see tears when people are um, are coming to grips with their feelings and emotions. We're helping them get through that fear of stuttering, and that is so satisfying. I think um, I think my simplistic answer would be that I think this is my purpose. And I think when you find your purpose, I think that's brings the happiness. It brings happiness.
But there is one thing I disagree on. I think it's just as hard on an adult as on a child. That is, if an adult gets sold a bill of goods that they can't improve their stuttering, it's only because they don't understand that most of the stuttering is the attitude. It's not the sound that comes out. It is how you feel about yourself, isn't it? And sometimes people are very unhappy, and sometimes they're not. And and I had occasions where I went and saw my girlfriend's parents, and they just said, in no uncertain terms, my daughter is not going to marry anybody who stutters, even if I have to shoot you. And that is when you're 25 or so. It's hard to take also. On the job, it hasn't been all that because I was able to get the kind of assignments where eh, I didn't advance as fast as, say, Jack Welch. Do you know who Jack Welch is?
Absolutely.
Tell them who Jack Welch is,
He was the CEO of GE.
who raised their income by, I, I forget, 800%.
Oh, at least.
Yeah. And then there was the unfortunate in the incidents of Joe Biden. He did not have the courage before he started to talk to say, yeah, on occasions I stutter. I think that if he would have had the courage to say, yes, I do stutter, he wouldn't have had as hard of a time in speaking. And people would have sort of given him more slack. Whether you're right wing politics or left wing politics, if somebody comes to you and is very honest, it's easier to accept them, isn't it?
So
So,
my thoughts about former President Biden is that even though he didn't disclose stuttering, even though he said that he used to stutter, that he overcame stuttering, he stuttered as a kid and all the other things that he said. Um, Even though it might have been easier for him to do something that we think he should have done, he still became president.
yeah.
He
Well,
still got there,
yeah,
so even though, um, he might have gone down a different path that would have made it easier and would made the press a little easier on him, the public to embrace him a little more. He still got there. He
yeah,
might have been as covert of a stutterer as there is, but he got there. I
yeah.
think that
That's
says a
right.
little something for it.
Well, there's Jack Welch and
Yeah.
there's Joe Biden. And there's both of us could go on and on and on and
Yeah.
on. Now, uh, do you think that an individual who cannot overcome stuttering on his own, stuttering to me, I told you, is most of it is the attitude. The sounds and all of that will follow. If somebody cannot ease and overcome most of their stuttering, don't you think it's valuable for them to go and see somebody who will work on their attitudes, cognition?
So I've known people that stutter 100 times every day and it doesn't bother 'em. I've known people that'll block one time during the day and it destroys them. So sometimes the people with a minimal stutter, when they actually stutter, it has more of an effect than a person that has a higher frequency of stutter. So yes, I think it is healthy. I think mental health for all of us.
Yeah. And but I'm also very enthused about the aspect is that there's more than one way how you can change your attitude. If there was only one way, I'd say, oh my God, not too good. Sometimes you gotta pivot,
Yeah.
don't go right, and you have to change what kind of what kind of techniques you use. But sometimes you have to know when to change and know when to hold them, know when to fold them. Yes. Now, we're entering the end of our session over here.